Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and I will be solo today. Jackson Bezdek is busy coaching, but we still got a lot to go over. I got a few takeaways from the Howard game as Kansas opened the season with a W, and then we'll be getting into the big one, North Carolina, Kansas. We'll have on the Athletics' Brendan Marks to kind of discuss UNC with us. And then at the end, we will have the press conferences of Thursday from Bill Self and players Diggy, Coit, and Rylan Griffen. So stay with us, y'all. It's going to be a great episode. Episode 45 of The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast, coming right up next. All right, everybody, welcome back to The Hum. Just very briefly, we're going to go over Kansas's 87-57 win over Howard to open the season inside of Allen Fieldhouse. A lot to like about this game for Kansas. Zeke Mayo led the way with 19 points, 5 3-pointers. He came off the bench once again. The starting lineup for this game actually was DeJuan Harris, Diggy Coit, Rylan Griffen, KJ Adams, and Hunter Dickinson. So both AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo came off the bench in this game. Flory Badunga, the freshman, also had a really nice game off the bench. 13 points, perfect 6 of 6 shooting from the field, and 8 rebounds. Also had a couple lobs that Flory threw down. And then you got Hunter Dickinson with a really quiet 16 and 6. Hunter only played 21 minutes coming back from that foot injury, but looked really good in the time he was out there, knocked down a 3. Then you have DeJuan Harris doing what he does, 6 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and then Diggy Coit impressed as well, was 3 of 4 from the field, 8 points and 4 assists. KJ Adams had 7 points and 4 rebounds here. AJ Storr with just 5 points. Really, a couple of things to take away from this game. The first one being Kansas's transition offense. I mean, Kansas looked really electric in transition. One play that stuck out for me is whenever DeJuan Harris, there's a defensive rebound, and DeJuan just sprinted straight down the floor, and Diggy Coit was able to find him for an easy fast break layup. That's kind of what DeJuan has been talking about in that preseason episode where we went to media day and interviewed some of the players. DeJuan was saying he doesn't have to bring the ball up every time now. He can just get out and run, and we're seeing that. Kansas this season, I think, is going to be absolutely electric in transition. They finished this game with 23 fast break points, quite a bit of points on the fast break there. So look for in this Carolina game for Kansas to get out and run. Carolina likes to play pretty fast too, so we could have a pretty fast-paced game here. Another takeaway was just the 5 spot for Kansas. I mean, if you're getting 16 out of Hunter Dickinson and 13 out of Flory, that's pretty good, as well as 14 combined rebounds from the 5 spot. I don't think there's many teams in the country that are going to be able to match up with Hunter Dickinson and Flory at the 5 spot minutes for Kansas, and it's a really different look. So that's something to really like. And then Diggy Coit, just continues to be a pest on the ball defensively, just continues to do everything that Kansas is asking of him. And you'll hear a lot of great things from Diggy Coit later in this episode as he spoke to the media today. Just another thing, one play that really, really stood out to me. There's a play where Kansas had about 4 just quick, crisp passes around the perimeter. And that's just something that last year you weren't seeing from this Kansas team, just swinging the ball around to capable shooters, making the defense collapse. I'm pretty sure that play ended in a 3-pointer from Zeke Mayo, if I'm correct there. But yeah, 26 bench points for Kansas to 18 points from the starters at one point. And it ended up being 45 bench points for Kansas to the 42 from the starters. And a lot of that was because Zeke Mayo did come off the bench. But it'll be interesting to see Who Kansas starts against North Carolina, I think that will answer a lot of questions. Will Diggy stay in that starting lineup? Will Rylan Griffen stay in that starting lineup, or will AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo come in there a little bit? But that's pretty much all I have for the Howard game. It was a great game for Kansas to really get in the swing of things in the regular season. It was a good win for Kansas, and now it's time to see if Kansas is really, really the great team that we think they are this season against North Carolina. So without further ado, let's bring in Brendan Marks and talk a little Kansas, North Carolina on Friday. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. Now joining us is Brendan Marks, a college basketball reporter for The Athletic, who I believe specifically focuses kind of in that North Carolina region. And hey, Brendan was the 2023 North Carolina Sports Writer of the Year. So it's an honor to have you on, Brendan. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, love talking college hoops, so appreciate you having me.
And there's no better game really to start the college basketball season than Kansas, North Carolina. Before we get into the game, I just want to ask you, what is just kind of the general vibe, kind of expectations surrounding the North Carolina program this year? Hubert Davis going into that fourth year.
Yeah, I think that obviously what North Carolina was able to accomplish last year sort of solidified the ground under Hubert Davis's feet. Year one, you have that miracle run to the title game. Year two, you become the first preseason number one since the tournament expanded to miss the field. People are feeling some type of way. But last year, Hubert Davis makes some really shrewd moves in the transfer portal, brings in Harrison Ingram, brings in Cormac Ryan. RJ Davis develops into a full-blown first team All-American, number one seed, ACC regular season championship. So I wouldn't say that there is quite like a national championship or bust expectation, but what Hubert accomplished last year certainly has people thinking that there could be a deep tournament run in the future. The thing that is interesting is you bring back RJ Davis, but you don't necessarily go and add anyone too impactful in the transfer portal otherwise. So I think this is a team that like deserves to probably be in the top 15. I think people see it as being an ACC contender, but certainly not in that same stratosphere that it was last year.
Gotcha. Yeah, and UNC played a couple of games so far. There's an exhibition against Memphis, and then the season opener against Elon. That game was a lot closer than the final score would say there. North Carolina won both those games, but how do you just think this team is kind of gelling together early on?
Yeah, well, it's not a great sign when you are trailing in the second half versus Elon with like 7 minutes to play. And it basically at that point, RJ Davis said, "Give me the ball and get out of my way, and I'm going to take over this thing." It's great that North Carolina has a player who can do that. It's not great that North Carolina needs to rely on that against Elon. I think if you were looking at this team just before we knew anything about either of those exhibitions, and RJ Davis didn't play in that Memphis exhibition, so I think it was a little bit different. But this is a team that has the perimeter talent to win a national title. Like RJ Davis is one of the best guards in America, if not one of the best players overall. Elliot Cadeau appears to have made a sophomore leap. Seth Trimble briefly went in the transfer portal and came back, and thank goodness he did because North Carolina desperately needs him. The question has been about the front court here, and that showed up against Elon. It showed up against Memphis, and certainly it is something I'm sure Bill Self is very aware of going into that matchup.
I also want to ask heading into this game, just how are you guys health wise? Kansas was a little banged up, and Bill Self said today that Shaquille Moore probably will not play against UNC, but other than that, everybody will be full go. How is UNC kind of on the health front?
Yeah, on the health front, pretty okay. RJ Davis, like I said, he missed that Memphis exhibition, was dealing with a lower back contusion, took a hard fall during UNC's inter-squad scrimmage back in October, but he seems to be fine. Not necessarily an injury thing, but an eligibility one. Ty Clodd, the former Georgia Tech transfer, just recently was declared eligible. So he's another body, at least, that North Carolina can throw out in the front court. I'm assuming that UNC's front court is probably going to have some foul trouble, so they might end up needing him. But otherwise, no, everybody seems to be, in decent condition for now.
Well, all right. It's good news. Good news. Both teams getting healthy for this one. Let's kind of get into the matchup now, and I wanted to start just with the fact that it's Kansas UNC. It's on Friday, nationally televised game during prime time. Rematch of the 2022 national championship. Two blue bloods going at it. Just how awesome is this for the sport of college basketball to have a game like this early?
Oh my God. I mean, when this game was announced, whatever it was, a year or two ago, I think myself, everybody else who cares about college basketball sort of circled this one on the calendar, like, the Roy Williams Bowl. It's as good as it gets. Like, and we've had some marquee matchups already this season. Obviously, Baylor Gonzaga, Ohio State Texas. But like you said, to have it, Sam, in prime time, to have it be Friday night, to have it be the event. To have it be at the Fog, all the history between these two teams, like you said, the 22 championship rematch, like you put it all together, and it's going to be on paper one of the best non-conference games of the year. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. I hope it does. But I mean, excitement wise, like we're talking 10 out of 10 right here. So it's exactly what the sports needs. I mean, if we could have more of it, more of those home and home sort of matchups, I think that would be best in everyone's best interests.
I already know I have a little bit of goosebumps just thinking about what the atmosphere is going to be like for that game. You kind of touched on it a little bit ago, but the guard play I think could be what kind of wins or loses this game for either side. UNC headlined by R.J. Davis, Elliot Cadeau, Seth Trimble, and then a five-star in Ian Jackson. Just how good is this guard group for UNC?
I mean, there's other teams that have great guards, but I mean, North Carolina's group definitely belongs in the conversation for being the best guard group in the country. I mean, that perimeter talent is legit. I mean, I think people maybe don't quite appreciate how good RJ Davis is. I mean, this guy is the only first team returning All-American in the country. Like, he is a walking 20 burger. Every single game you can count on it. He delivers in the clutch. Really outside of that Alabama game in the Sweet 16 last year, like he was kind of infallible last year for North Carolina. And so he obviously is where everything starts for them. To me, the big difference is in the development of Elliot Cadeau and Seth Trimble, because Elliot Cadeau last year, and especially in the NCAA tournament that lost to Alabama, teams could basically dork him and avoid him on the perimeter. He was shooting 39% from three, looked like he had lost his confidence. The shot was in no way anything that teams had to respect, and they didn't. That's not the case anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that mechanically anything is super different. He has stopped leaning back quite as far in his shot, which I think has helped a little bit. But he makes a couple in the opener. UNC's first possession of the entire season against Elon. He drains a three, steps into it with confidence. So him being able to do that, Seth Trimble being able to do that. Trimble, Elliot Cadeau has been known as this pick and roll wizard, this passing savant. Seth Trimble has made some real strides in the pick and roll game, and his patience and his vision, and those three especially sort of make it such a high floor for North Carolina on the perimeter. And then, yeah, Ian Jackson still needs some seasoning, but in terms of like scoring talent, like this is a hyper aggressive New York style guard. And you never know when he'll fill it up. He did struggle in the Memphis exhibition. It was a true road atmosphere. This is obviously going to be that, probably on steroids. But in those four guys, I mean, Hubert Davis has a lot of confidence, and he should. Kansas has backcourt talent as well, but that is where, I mean, all of North Carolina's hopes and dreams rest on that backcourt group.
Something I thought was interesting from media today is Rylan Griffen said whenever Alabama played them last year, they kind of dared those guys to shoot like Cadeau. And this year, he was pretty frank. You just can't do that this year with this North Carolina team. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Brennan, tell me about these forwards, Withers and Washington, a little bit. What do they bring to the table, and how can they stop a 7-footer and Hunter Dickinson, who's probably also going to be an All-American?
Yeah, well, I think if Hubert Davis had that answer, he'd probably be sleeping a lot better. Quite frankly, I don't know how Jalen Washington and Jalen Withers contain Hunter Dickinson. They struggled with Elon's physicality. Jalen Washington was one of Hubert Davis's first recruits when he first got the job from Roy Williams. And unfortunately, from that point forward, suffered a couple of injuries, a couple of setbacks. He is finally healthy, which is a great starting point, but is more of a face-up guy than a back-to-the-basket big. Definitely is on the leaner side, has some stretch potential, can stretch it from three legitimately. So I think, North Carolina is probably going to try and pull Dickinson out of the paint there as much as they can, just to isolate him. Jalen Washington does have that in his bag, but in terms of bruising inside, in terms of finishing through contact, in terms of, actually competing for a rebound with a guy of Dickinson's caliber, if he puts it on, if he can put it together, it would be the first time he's done so. And Jalen Withers has shown flashes of excellence. He had a double-double against Elon. He is probably the most athletic player on the team, but the inconsistency is what kills you. Some of the decision making is what kills you. And again, not to harp on it, but you go back to that Alabama loss in the Sweet 16. He takes a late 3-pointer where RJ Davis is wide open and clanks it, game over basically. So, I don't know that those two are really going to be able to control Dickinson outside of just trying to pull him out of the paint and get space for those guards. That is easily the biggest mismatch that North Carolina has going into this game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we've talked about the top six: Davis, Cadeau, Trimble, Jackson, Washington, and Withers. Who can be kind of the X factor in this game for UNC? Is there anybody we didn't mention that you think we probably should?
Yeah, there's two other guys who definitely bear mentioning at least, and one of them is Drake Powell. He's one of North Carolina's other five-star freshmen, projected lottery pick in the first round next year's draft. 6'6", 6'7" wing, and defensively, he's a guy where if somebody's giving you trouble, he's already North Carolina's best defensive player. Hubert Davis will park him on whoever that is. So if it's Zeke Mayo, if it's AJ Storr, if it's Rylan Griffen, whoever it is, Hubert Davis has confidence sort of parking him on that perimeter player. And especially considering the size that North Carolina is giving up in the backcourt. I mean, RJ Davis is maybe 6 feet tall. Elliot Cadeau, same thing, maybe 6 feet tall. Seth Trimble's at least 6'3", and they've got him guarding threes and fours. Drake Powell is a guy defensively who I think can make a difference in this game. And again, if he gets out in transition, he's a crazy athlete. Is still growing offensively, but defensively, I could see him being a guy where Hubert Davis parks him and makes a difference. And the other one from an offensive standpoint is Cade Tyson. He was North Carolina's big transfer portal import and didn't do much against Elon. Has kind of struggled to find his footing so far, but he was one of the best three-point shooters in America last year. You never know when it will click for those guys. Older brother Hunter Tyson is in the NBA. Was a star at Clemson for a bunch of years. Has played in those environments before. If North Carolina is struggling to fill it up offensively, I could certainly see Hubert Davis giving him some run. And in the few instances that we have seen Tyson so far this season, when one goes in, a couple do. They come in buckets. So he's another guy that I would be watching out for as well.
Well, thank you for kind of wrapping up everybody and kind of what North Carolina will bring. I want to ask you this, and I'll give mine first if you'd like. I want just some kind of keys to the game and then a prediction, if you dare. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Kansas 84, UNC 76. That's kind of the score that I'm looking at, and I haven't seen any lines from BetMGM yet for this game. But my three keys would be feed Hunter Dickinson for Kansas with the mismatch that we talked about. I think RJ Davis limiting him to just 20, not letting him go nuclear in Allen Fieldhouse, kind of like Tristan Newton did for UConn. Kind of he can get 20, but he can't get 30. And then rebounded run. I think Kansas, if they control the glass, defensive glass, and just get out and run, UNC could have some problems there. What are just your thoughts, some keys to the game?
Yeah, I mean, they would almost be the reverse of yours. For North Carolina, it's you've got to figure out a Hunter Dickinson solution. So whether that is driving at him early and trying to get him in foul trouble, whether it's using Washington and even Van Allen Lubin, the Vanderbilt transfer, trying to pull Dickinson out of the paint as much as you can. That is priority number one because North Carolina wants to live in the paint. And with Dickinson's there, given its bigs, it's just not going to have a chance. Secondly, sort of the opposite of what you were saying. You cannot wait until you're down in the second half with 7 minutes left in the game to start feeding RJ Davis the ball. He has got to have a consistent volume of looks, and his usage rate was high last year. It's going to have to be sky high again in this game to have an opportunity. And then, for North Carolina, one thing that Hubert Davis has really stressed this year, especially in the offseason, that we have already started to see, I mean, that pace is hugely important for North Carolina, especially with the size that it gives up in the half court getting points in transition. You're starting essentially four guards at times, at least three. North Carolina can run with anybody in the country. You've got to get a couple of freebies because when the defensive set, you're just not going to be able to go up against the size that Kansas has. So I'm with you in terms of the prediction. I'm going to go with Kansas. I do think it'll be probably a little bit more higher scoring just because I don't know that North Carolina is holding this offense to 84.
They're going to be going up and down the court. It's going to be fun basketball.
They are. I would think I'd be surprised if this game is not in the 80s. I could see Kansas even getting up almost to 90. So, I mean, if I was making a score prediction, I'd probably say something like Kansas 88, Carolina 82, 81. Carolina can fill it up. I just don't see defensively how they get enough stops to actually come out with a win, especially on that road environment.
Well, there you have it, y'all. A preview of North Carolina, Kansas inside Allen Fieldhouse, 6 p.m. Central Time tip-off. Brendan, thank you so much for coming and joining us on the Hum. I really appreciate it. Hope to have you on again sometime soon. NC State coming to Allen Fieldhouse as well. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. Kansas gets all three triangle teams this year. So there's going to be a couple of matchups, and it'll be interesting to see if the triangle doesn't go 0 for 3 this year. I don't think it will, but we'll see.
I wouldn't bet on that, but they're all going to be great games. Thank you again. Up next here on the Hum, we have the interviews from today. We have Rylan Griffen, and we also have Bill Self and Diggy Coit talking here after the break. Thank you again, Brendan.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Hey, fellas, obviously two newcomers on you guys. I'm just wondering what you think about this matchup early on and kind of your thoughts early on Carolina. I mean, this is obviously a marquee matchup that everybody's going to be talking about the next couple of days.
I would just say it's a big time matchup. Two good programs, two championship type programs going at it. And it's going to be fun. I feel like it's going to be great energy in the arena. And I feel like we're going to bring energy too, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's just a blessing to be here. I'm trying to just live in the moment. Obviously, I never played in probably a game this big or environment this big, so I definitely just want to enjoy every moment of it. But I know it's going to be fun. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be high level, so we're really excited.
Rylan, you had the experience of playing against Alabama. I mean, started playing when you were at Alabama against UNC not that long ago. Just what do you remember from that and the talent they have?
I remember we beat them first, but I remember that they were very, very talented. I feel like they were a 1 seed for a reason last year. They had All-American big, All-American guard, and they play really fast. That's still something that I see that they're doing again this year. And this year they got a little bit smaller. They're not as big as they were last year, but they're even more faster this year. So we got to get up, and they got 3 guards that can really go do a lot of things on the court. So that's going to be a big challenge too. But I feel like we should live up to those challenges and play very, very well against them.
David, just curious, you just mentioned it. What do you think the biggest game you have played in is?
Arena-wise, you mean?
Opponents, probably, yeah, like
probably
high-profile type thing.
Marquette.
Okay.
I had a concussion, came back from concussion protocol, and that was the first live play I had for real.
What was that?
It was at Marquette.
Last year?
Yeah, last year. That was obviously high-level talent. Tyler Coit, great guard, great coach. It was a different scene. So, and they were really good last year. They also played very fast.
You just mentioned, and you've said this before, just happy to be here, the crowd, the environment, this matchup. Do you ever find yourself kind of looking around and saying, wow?
Every day.
Do you?
Yeah, every day I wake up, I can't believe my life. So I try to appreciate every moment and just put it all out there for the team, for my family, my friends watching. So
What's the balance there from being too wow to getting back down to earth and locking in and all that? How do you manage that balance?
just remembering where I come from and like who I do this for. You know what I mean? A lot of people in my position that have been my position that I grew up with, not here today. Some dead, some in jail, some can't be here, some weren't good enough, some just didn't have the right opportunity. So remembering why you're doing this is always something that keep you grounded. And no moment's ever too big just because of the people I'm doing it for is bigger than the moment I'm in. You know what I'm saying? So.
This is for both of you. Kansas does a great job protecting its home court. Huge matchup here. How much pressure, or I guess emphasis, are they putting on you guys to, come back? Because North Carolina, the one other time they played here, they won. So are they stressing that, like, hey, we gotta win?
Nah, I feel like home games, like, they expect us to win, so it's no, like, pressure. Like, they expect us to come out and win, so I think I seen something in the locker room. He's like 320 and 18 at home, so that just speaks for itself on what we should be doing at home. We should be taking care of business.
Yeah, I feel like Coach Self a different type of coach. So like every day feel like a UNC game. Like the intensity, like of how like the standard he holds us to, but also the vets and where we trying to be and what we hold each other to. I feel like every game is very important, high level. So it's like they don't stress more game one than the other, even though we know it's bigger, name wise, but we gotta approach it the same way every day.
Yeah, so, like these are games you don't lose when you come here. These are top games.
And does it feel, special seeing these campers out here, especially, a game like this? I'm sure they've been out all week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I never seen that.
I never seen that in my life.
I thought they were like students trying to do something like. I heard they was camping, and I'm like, we don't play till Friday.
When they start camping?
The next morning, 6 a.m.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Wow. Shout out to y'all.
Shout out to you.
I was asleep at that time.
Hey, David, when you get the ball on the perimeter, it doesn't seem like you do a lot of thinking or a lot of hesitation. It just seems like you're ready for the moment. Is that a fair statement, and what is it about you that allows you to be that type of player?
I think that's a fair statement. I think just a lot of hours you put in, you feel comfortable in the moment, but also understanding like my role change. Understand I had the ball 24/7 last year, making plays, scoring on the points, really living and dying by me and my playmaking, but understanding that now I'm playing with the best talent I ever played with. I play with a top point guard, top guards, shooters, like different type of high level. So understanding that that's gonna have to be my role. I'm gonna have to defend very hard, play hard, play make as well, but I gotta be ready to shoot. I gotta knock down the shot. Like so knowing that, and then that's how you prepare during the week. And obviously when you put your own hours in the gym and like, all right, these where my shots are gonna come from. So in the game I feel comfortable. So I don't want to ever feel like out of sort, like, oh, I didn't know I was going to get this shot. You know what I'm saying? So I try to stay ready.
And Rylan, obviously everybody knows about Hunter. KJ and Troy's been really good early on. Perimeter-wise tomorrow, Friday, how important is it for you guys to make an impact on a game where every position could be critical?
It's gonna start with us on the defensive end, because that's where most of their team. That's where they get their points most of the time, from their guards. So I know like Diggy's an elite defender, Zeke's a good defender. I feel like I can defend, and AJ's a good defender. Juan's been a defensive player of the year, I think nationally. So we have the ability to stop their guards. It's just a matter of if we do it or not. And I think if we take their guards out, we have a really, really good chance of winning the game, because I feel like that's where they get most of their points from, the guards.
You guys talking? Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Trace.
Just looking at the UNC guards, what makes them so difficult to play against? Do you feel like with all the different guards you guys have, it's kind of good preparation for that?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like RJ Davis is an elite scorer. He can score from all three levels. Elliot Cadeau is a great passer. It looked like he has worked on his 3-ball. That was something at Alabama that we wanted him to do, shoot. So, but looks like he's worked on it. He's learned from that game. So, no dare shots for him either, really. And then Seth Trimble was the same way. We gave them both dare shots last year, and I think they both took that personal and went to work on their shot, and now they're shooting great. So, just make sure they don't really get going. If they see one go in, they might can make a couple more. So just make sure that they don't get comfortable out there and impact the game at a very, very high level like they always do.
Time for a couple more.
You guys kind of touched on it, but when you were being recruited, how was all this described to you when you hadn't really seen it yet? The program, the aura, everything.
I probably, just because of my situation, I really wasn't recruited.
Right.
Like, it wasn't a situation I was just trying to come play.
Right.
And I think Coach Self told me that obviously it's going to be different than I ever seen. Like, it's going to be something else that I never could expect. And I think the level of winning, I think that was the main message. Like, just being a 20-win team here is not enough. Like, and every other program, that's like a great accomplishment. That's like a great year, but for here at Kansas, that's not enough. So I think that was the biggest thing. I was like, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't really have an idea of like how it was gonna be. I just know that they told me, don't even think about what you think it's gonna be because it's gonna be way more. So I just was like, all right.
Yeah, for me, they told me like the same thing, but I knew we had like this matchup. I knew we had Duke, and I knew we had Michigan State, and all that, and of course all the Big 12 games. So that was a big reason why I came here. I wanted to play against a bunch of those teams, night in and night out, and compete against the best and with the best. So that was really just the pitch to me.
David, it is possible to fly under the radar coming to Kansas. Perhaps you did, and now you've blown up in about 2 weeks. Do you feel that, that you're the topic of conversation in what you've been able to bring to this team, and now the opportunity to blow up on the big stage on Friday, and you seem to be a confident young man. Are you ready to take that on and continue with the progress you've made?
Yeah, I think I'm very blessed, but I'm also understanding that I'm blowing up right now, obviously because I wasn't recruited heavily coming throughout my life and in my situation, but I also understand that it's not about me. So just providing the most that I can to help us win is going to be most important. But I think I'm definitely appreciative that people are giving me credit. It's, you like getting your flowers, you like people noticing you. So I think that feels great, but if we could just get this win, I'll feel way better, for sure.
And the fact that you weren't highly recruited, is that a motivator in itself that maybe gets you up in the morning and wants you to prove some people that maybe did overlook you wrong and take that to the next level?
I would say it's definitely something that wakes you up. I mean, I feel like once you're doubted heavily, like your whole life, or you're just, under-recruited, you kind of sway away from like trying to prove you wrong and more so proving yourself right. Like making a statement, like you want to make a statement when you get on every court. You want to play hard, but also understanding that this is not going to last forever. So we got to put everything we got into it. This is my last year, junior. So he ain't going to have too many more of these and too many more of these moments, matchups, especially with great fans at KU, the great people surrounding the program. So it's like the little job that I do have to go hard, I feel like I should do that without question, just because it's so much that people put into this, you know what I'm saying? So I think our job is the easy part. We just got to play hard and put our hearts out there for 40 minutes. That's all people want to see. So I don't think it's a big ask, but I think that's on my mind every day for sure.
All right, fellas, thank you so much.
How you doing? Hi, Shay.
First of all, anything stand out about Carolina? And I don't know if you can answer, but any matchups you look at that you really liked, or anything that you like about your team that can maybe explore?
I wouldn't say matchups. There may be 5-on-5, 5-man on 5-man, but I think they'll probably switch some. We switch some, so there'll probably be some some different matchups that maybe somebody tries to play to through a switch. But it's too early in the season to know enough. You know, we watched them, what they've done so far, and I'm sure they've watched our 2 exhibitions in our game against Howard, and you know, we didn't show anything, and I don't think they've shown a ton. So we don't really know. Go back and watch last year's games towards the end of the season that they played, but for the most part, you know, they've obviously got good personnel and they're terrific on the perimeter, and they're going to play 3 guards, and they're lightning quick and can get downhill. So it'll be a big challenge for our guards for sure.
And I know obviously year 22 for you. You've always been got to give credit to your coaches, former players. You're coming up on Fog Island. Have you given any thought to what that would mean in terms of just looking back when this journey started and to where you are now?
Uh,
I mean, it's a significant.
It's a significant number because it means I'm damn old, and it also means that you know, we play a lot more games now per year than what they did back in. You know, if Fogg had played 30 games a year back when he was coaching for 39 years, you know, that record, that's 1,200 games. You know, that record wouldn't ever be touched. You know, I'm sure it is significant to some, and I'm sure past players, you know, play a role in that without question. But I've been the beneficiary of a lot of good players and good staff, and being at a place you can recruit good guys. But you know, I don't think I will read into it any more than that. I hold him in such high regard that I don't think that he deserves to be thought of as always the most innovative and the best coach to ever coach here. So nothing that will happen from this point forward will convince me otherwise. He just did it in a different time when we have a lot of advantages now that he had to build, and we didn't have to do that. So I give him all the credit, and I think other coaches that have coached here, if they really thought about it and understood history, they would feel the exact same way I do.
Bill, I don't know what the adjective is, but is it weird these 2 schools haven't played more in the regular season, given who they are?
You know what? How many times have we played overall ever? 12. Yeah, that's a small number. You know, Kentucky and Kansas went years and didn't play regular season, but I think we've ended up, I think that number's probably 35 now, something like that. So 12 is a ridiculously small number, considering of the 12, I know of at least 4 and probably 6 or 8 that came in the NCAA tournament. Right. So that means, you know, you got, you know, on one hand, you can probably count the number of regular season matchups. You know, it's a different time. I'm not emotionally tied to Carolina like others that have been here have been emotionally tied to Carolina. Hubert's not emotionally tied to Kansas like Coach Smith and Coach Williams was tied to Kansas. So it's probably different for us. Even though I think that both of us would hold the other in high regard without question and respect everything that's taken place at both places. I think sometimes when you can remove that or have at least a couple of degrees of separation, it just feels different and makes it for a better game, makes for a better game and a better competitive game. And I think that's probably the case with this. I think it's an awesome game this early in the season. I know our guys will be jacked, their guys will be jacked. It's going to be fun. You know, we met a couple of years ago in Hubert's first year, and there's just our history is so intertwined that you can't help but respect the other, because we're not what we are, either one of us, without the other. So it just makes it a special series, one that I know Sean got set up for us to play home and home, but you know, this would be one I would say anytime you play Carolina, you play Carolina, just like Kentucky or Duke or whatever. And certainly we're happy to host them, and then we'll see how tomorrow goes, and then we'll decide if we want to return the game next year.
All right, Coach. Given y'all's history with them and the significance, you know, of this game, and just the one other time that y'all played here was in 1960, the only other time that you guys have met in Allen Fieldhouse. How important is it to protect the home court, in this game tomorrow against a team like North Carolina?
It's always important to protect your home court. It has no more significance in the way that you described it than any other game. Let's just call it like it is. It's a second game, and the teams that play tomorrow night, we hope aren't recognizable in March. We both got to get a lot better, regardless of how tomorrow night goes. And so it's significant probably from a fan standpoint and pride standpoint more than it actually is the significance of what this game actually means in both teams trying to vie to put themselves in the best position to compete for all the marbles this year.
Billy, we don't see a lot of these games on campus, right? Like Duke's playing Arizona at home and home, but they're pretty rare. What are the benefits specifically, and maybe there's some drawbacks too, of actually playing home and home on campus again in a game like this?
Well, I think the way that we schedule and the way that Carolina schedules and everybody's schedules moving forward has to be thought of differently since we're in a new era of college athletics. And how do we generate money when basically there's a big portion of it that is coming out of a budget that, okay, how do we replace $20 million? Every school in America is going to look at it. So I would say you play games that generate gate, whether that be a neutral site game, whether that be a home and home game. But from my perspective, you need to play, and from Sean's perspective, I believe you need to play enough quality to make sure your season ticket buyers get the bang for the buck. And we try to do that every year. And of course that'll take place again this year. Then after that, how do we generate as much money for our institution and our athletic department that we possibly can? So there'll be some different strategies moving forward with scheduling, i.e. the exempt tournaments and MTEs, that schools may have done some things in the past out of the experiences that those type events provided, to now we'll be looking at it. Experiences are important, but so is the bottom line too. And we'll, schools have to do more things towards that. So I think the home and homes are good. I don't think you can play 3 home and home, 6 games against home and home people a year. I don't even know if you can play 4 moving forward. This year we're playing 4, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, Sean? We got at Creighton, and we have at Missouri, and then we have NC State at home. And so next year we'll go to NC State and we'll go to Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And Missouri will be a home game for us. So depending on what we want to do with that, we'll probably complete a cycle. And then after that, who knows how we'll schedule? Who knows how we'll do it? Because we'll do it based on how much revenue can be generated.
You talked about how early in the season this game is arriving, and this is the kind of game where you might find yourself playing like a tighter rotation, like last year against UConn, basically played 6 guys. How would you approach that, knowing that it's so early and maybe you're still figuring out who you can trust and to what extent?
We played 6 guys against UConn last year?
Technically 8, but 2 of them were like 2 minutes apiece.
It was 8. It was 8. Our rotation was 8 deep last year in that situation. I will tell you this year it won't be 6. But the reality of it is, you want to win this game, but you also have to prepare to win on Tuesday too. And historically, Tuesday's been the first big game of the year, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Connecticut was actually early December last year. People won't want to hear this. We want to win the game, but we also don't want to put our team in a position that we can be better moving forward and having guys' minds right and that kind of stuff too. So certainly I anticipate trusting my rotation a lot more than what you said I did last year, even though 8 seems like a pretty big number last year.
Coach, when you look at this Carolina team, they obviously have these 3 guards What kind of threat does each of those guards provide? Is it a different threat, or are each of them sort of similar players?
One of them's a National Player of the Year candidate. You know, he can get downhill, he can shoot the basketball. Even against Elon the other night, when they were kind of laboring, you know, he just put them on their back and go win the game. Another one got 33 on the road at Memphis this year. Another one is probably as true a point guard and from a skill standpoint, passing the ball as you'll find. And then maybe maybe down the road, the two best prospects come off the bench. You don't know that, but that's you know, so that's a loaded backcourt without question. And the thing I would say that impresses me about them as much as anything, just in general, from the guard standpoint, is when they play downhill. They don't play side to side. They put pressure on you, and all three of them do it equally well in that respect.
Sure. You saw R.J. Davis, their star guard in the national title game in 2022. How much has he evolved as a player since then?
Well, he was good then, but yeah, he's better now. I mean, I don't believe that year he was a first-team All-American, and he's going to be a first-team All-American this year, and he was last year too. So he's a much better basketball player, but he was pretty damn good then as well.
Coach, I know you had mentioned that you hope that this team looks very different in March compared to how it does now. Does it have any effect, scheduling a high caliber game like this in the second game of the season, does that have any effect on the development and the growth of the team, especially the young players?
Great question, because in a perfect world, if you have a lot of newcomers, you probably want to get into it a little bit slower in a perfect world, so you get confidence and have guys get confidence in the way we're trying to do things. This is definitely an imperfect world, and my scheduling czar over there said we don't get a chance to play Carolina home and home, so we're going to play them whenever it works out for both of us. And so this is when we had to do it in order to have to play them. So just the way it is, and I'm going to look at it as positive. I mean, you can learn more about your group probably playing a team like Carolina than you can playing a guarantee game in many ways. Although sometimes the lessons taught through these type of games, may not end as happily as what some of the other lessons that can be taught, but certainly a game to get both teams' attention.
Anything else? Gary.
Do you think you would...
Hold on a second, you're not going to ask me who's starting? No, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gary.
Do you think you would put Juan on RJ?
Could, yeah, could.
Rylan guarded him last year
Could,
for Alabama.
yeah, we could do that too.
Would you throw different buttons?
Could, we could, yeah, that's exactly right. Could, yeah, exactly. Great question.
Great answer.
What about Shaq? Is he available?
I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play. He did not practice yesterday. So since he's been off, or when did we play? Did we play on Monday? And he was, last day he went was Friday or something like that. So no, without him practicing, even if he practiced today, I probably wouldn't play him tomorrow. So
Has
I
Hunter
think,
held up well?
yeah, Hunter's been fine. Hunter's been fine.
And I just wondered, you're pretty close with Larry Brown. Were you aware he played in that game in the Fieldhouse in 1960?
I did. I'll be honest. I was not aware that KU hosted Carolina in 1960. But Coach, I could be wrong. Was he a senior in 1960 and played on the Olympic team in 60? I think that's right. So doesn't surprise me that's the case. But I had no idea that he played then. Hopefully, I haven't talked to Coach. We talked to one of his buddies, Doug Compton, and he's not coming to this game. I wish he was, but I think he has other things, commitments going on and couldn't make it. But certainly, we'll try to use that somehow as motivation in some way, shape, or form, I guess.
Is there another question?
Anybody else?
We're good. Thanks, Coach.